Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Adam Wolfe Gordon. I'm a senior engineer at DigitalOcean, where I work on our managed Kubernetes product. Today, since I'm at PromCon, I'm not going to talk about Kubernetes. I'm going to talk about Grafana. Specifically, I'm going to talk about how our team manages our Grafana dashboards using Git and using a tool called Grafonnet, which I like. So I want to start today with a little bit of audience participation. So just quick show of hands. How many of you use Grafana? All right, that's like almost everyone. In case anyone doesn't know what Grafana is a visualization system. It lets you build dashboards, supports Prometheus, supports lots of other metrics backends, as well as logs and various other things. The nice thing about Grafana is it lets you see a lot of data in one place, lets you pull in metrics from multiple sources into a single dashboard. Yeah, and it saves you from having to remember a bunch of prompt queries for metrics that you use a lot. How many of you would say Grafana is important to you and important to your operations? All right, a lot of us. It's definitely important for us at DigitalOcean. If something goes wrong, if I get paged in the middle of the night, Grafana is one of the first places I go and look to see maybe what's going on. What am I getting paged for? If I deploy something and I'm not totally confident in its performance characteristics, Grafana is where I'm going to go and look, watch, make sure things look good. How many of you do code review for your application or service, whatever it is you're building? All right, almost everyone, most people. How many of you do some kind of CI testing for your services? And how many do some kind of continuous deployment? So quite a few of us. I think these are all, pretty commonly accepted engineering practices now in the industry. Most of us review our code before it's committed. Most of us test it before it's committed. Most of us deploy it automatically once it is committed. How many of you do code review and CI testing and continuous deployment for your Grafana dashboards? All right, there's a few, that's good. Some of us, but not a lot of us. Most of us are doing it for our applications and our services, but not for our Grafana dashboards. And we weren't either, but we decided that we should. Remember we said our Grafana dashboards are important to us. They're an important part of our operations. So we should apply good engineering practices to them. We should keep them in version control so that we can see who changed them, when they changed it, why they changed it, what actually changed when. We should do code review for them. We should take a look at what's changing before we actually make the change live. Ideally, we do some kind of continuous integration, some kind of testing, validate that changes are correct before we roll them out. And we should deploy automatically as well, so we're not stepping on each other's toes. And one that I didn't mention, but is also a good practice, is component reuse. If we have metrics, a bunch of services that produce the same metrics, it's nice if they look the same everywhere on your dashboards. That reduces the cognitive overhead when you go to look at a dashboard. You don't have to figure out which panel is where. They're in the same place for all services that are sort of similar. So we wanted to do all of these things, and I set out to sort of build a system to do this. And I discovered that Grafana has an API. So I thought this should be easy. We can write our dashboards in JSON, and we can deploy them using the Grafana API. Right? Sounds simple. I discovered that it wasn't quite so simple. There were two basic challenges. For one, Grafana's JSON model for dashboards isn't really meant to be consumed by humans. It's not like a nice human-readable format. It's really an internal representation of the dashboard, which is fair. But that meant that it wasn't great for just sort of writing it by hand. The other issue is that dashboards are inherently visual things, right? That's the whole point of having a dashboard, is to look at it. And so it's kind of hard to test or verify a change, hard to see when you're reviewing code what a change is going to look like just from looking at the JSON model or some kind of code representation of the dashboard. You want to be able to see it live. So I had two problems to solve. Number one is how to make the dashboard JSON human readable, how to make it nice to work with. And the other was how to make it reviewable, how to generate previews or have some kind of way to see your changes before they go live. So my solution for the first problem was to use JSONnet and the library called Grafonnet. JSONnet is a JSON templating language. So it supports everything that JSON supports. So you can write raw JSON in it. But it also supports defining functions and having variables and trailing commas and all the other nice things that you like to have when you're writing code. Grafana is a Grafana library for JSON. So it understands, has built into it all of the Grafana specific JSON bits. So it knows how to generate valid dashboard JSON for Grafana. This combination is really nice. It lets you write sort of human-friendly, human-readable code. It feels like reading and writing code rather than reading and writing just JSON. And you can see on the slide up at the top, I have a little snippet of JSON where I'm importing the Grafana library and defining a dashboard. And you can see it compiles into this big mess of JSON, which is much less nice to look at. My solution for the second problem was a feature of Grafana that I hadn't really used much before I started working on this. And that was snapshots. A snapshot is an immutable point-in-time copy of a dashboard. So it shows you a dashboard as it looked at a particular time with the data and everything. And this is sort of most commonly used for sort of permalinks into dashboards. So if you have an incident or something and you want to see what did my metrics look like at that time, you create a snapshot. It makes it easy to share on Slack or in a postmortem or whatever. It turns out that you can create a dashboard in Grafana, or sorry, a snapshot in Grafana without having a dashboard for it. You can actually just create a snapshot from a blob of JSON that defines a dashboard. So that's exactly what we did to be able to have previews of dashboards when you're changing them. We create a snapshot in Grafana of the dashboard that we are changing. And you can see up here, I have a little snippet of JSON again, just defining a dashboard, adding a panel. And I can run a preview script and turn it into this dashboard that I can actually look at and see what it looks like. One of the nice things about snapshots is they can have expiry times. So we're not going to fill up our whole Grafana server with these temporary or things that are intended to be temporary. We can set them to expire after 5 minutes or 7 days or whatever makes appropriate. So just to put together these pieces a little bit, the way that we manage our Grafana dashboards is in a Git repository. It's full of JSON and dashboard definitions, like I mentioned. And we have a script generate preview. So as you're working on a dashboard, you will generate a live preview. You can see what you're working on. When you put up a pull request, we have a CI job that finds changes in the dashboards in your pull request. And it generates a preview for each of those dashboards, posts a link back to the pull request. And finally, once you merge something, we have a continuous deployment job that publishes all the dashboards to Grafana so that they're live right away. And that, I think, sounds like fun, but it's more fun if you actually see it. So we'll try a live demo here, and hopefully the Wi-Fi holds up and everything. But let's give it a try. So for this demo, I've deployed the sort of standard Kubernetes demo thing, which is Emojivoto. This is a little set of microservices. It's used pretty widely in demos. And you can see it's just a little page that lets us vote for our favorite emoji. It has a leaderboard. And the sort of fun features, if you vote for the donut, it throws an error so that you get some errors in your logs. This is a special version of Emojivoto that I have deployed today. This one has Prometheus metrics, and I have a Prometheus server scraping it, and I have Grafana set up to visualize it. So I've built a little dashboard here of emoji popularity over time. It just graphs, which emojis are being voted for. And down at the bottom, I have this top 20 emojis in the last 24 hours. There's a load generator running on this. I haven't been just like going and clicking on emojis. So this is happening automatically. You can see how many votes there are. The source for this dashboard is in a Git repository, which I have here. Hopefully it's visible. So this is a repository that looks very much like the one that we use for our dashboards at DigitalOcean. In particular, it has this dashboards directory, which has, in our case, only one subdirectory, but has subdirectories. These subdirectories turn into folders on Grafana, so you can keep your dashboards nice and organized. So here's our dashboard definitions in JSON. So we'll look at the emoji popularity one that we were just looking at. You can see up top, we import a bunch of things. These are just importing the Grafana library that I mentioned. The next part you'll see here is a nice feature of JSON, which is that we can define local variables. So we don't have to just sort of put all of our JSON in line. We can give it useful names. We can make it reusable as variables. finally, we get to the actual dashboard definition. This is what defining a real dashboard looks like in JSON. We call dashboard.new. We add panels to it. You can see a little bit lower the Prometheus queries that we're putting in. And you can see here that we're also able to use arbitrary JSON when we need to. You can put JSON right in. And you can do things like this where you have a JSON element defined in a variable and you want to merge it into something that you already have. You can just add it, merges it. So it's pretty nice to use, pretty ergonomic. Let's say that we want to make a change to this dashboard. So I have my dashboard here that we just looked at with my top 20 emojis in the last 24 hours. I want to add another table of top 20 emojis of all time, just as an interesting metric. So here's my Git repository again, just checked out. And I've actually already made the change so that I didn't have to do that live. So this is the change that I've made. You can see I'm adding another table panel with a very similar query in it, just of all time instead of the last 24 hours. So I want to see what that change is actually going to look like. I'm going to run my preview script, and I'm going to pass it my dashboard definition. And that's going to generate a preview, and it's actually going to just pop it open in a browser window, and I can see it right away. So now this is the same dashboard we just looked at, except on the right-hand side now we have top 20 emojis of all time. Dog is the most popular, apparently. So that's a nice way to see what I'm working on. If I create a pull request for that, and again, I've done this ahead of time so I don't have to do it live. I have a GitHub action that runs on the pull request. It finds files that were changed in the pull request and generates previews for them. So I can click through to this preview that it's generated and posted to my PR, and we'll see the same thing. The numbers might be a little bit different because this is, again, a snapshot. It's a point in time. And this dashboard lasts for some number of days. So if someone took a long time to review my PR, I might have to regenerate the previews. And I'm going to merge this pull request, and we'll come back in a minute and we'll see that continuous deployment has actually deployed the change for me. The other piece that I mentioned is being able to build reusable components. And this is something we can do easily with JSON and Grafana. I have a reusable component in my templates directory here called gRPC. So I have 2 gRPC services running as part of this demo, and they're generating basic request metrics. So request counts, error counts, request durations, things you'd expect. And I want to have dashboards for all of these services, and I want them to look the same because they're generating the same metrics, they're showing the same metrics. So I have a little Grafana component that I've written here. I have a function called new in this file that returns a set of rows. And this set of rows is a row of request rates. So it has a graph of request rate by method, request rate by response code. Then I have a row of error information, so total error rate by method. Finally, a row of durations, so request durations P50, P90, P90. So basic sort of service metrics that you might have for any kind of service. And we can see the way that we use this template now is to import it into a dashboard. I have my emoji service, for example. I create a dashboard, I've imported my gRPC library, and I call grpc.new, I pass it my data source name and my service name, and that's going to generate those 3 rows for this particular service. And if I go to our Grafana here, we can see what that looks like. I've got my response code, request rates, my error rates, and my request durations, which are pretty uniform. It's not a very interesting demo in terms of metrics. The voting service one is a little bit more interesting because it does have errors. So you can see we've got a bit of an error rate. So let's say that I want to make a change to this template now. I want to move all of the legends onto the right-hand sides of the graph, just so that they're a little bit more readable. Because, for example, we have a lot of different metrics on this graph here. Again, I've made the change ahead of time, so I can show you. This is a pretty simple change, just adding some legend parameters to all of my tables, or all of my graph panels, so that they show up in a nicer way. And again, I've created the pull request ahead of time. So if I go to my pull requests here, I've got improved legends on gRPC graphs. And the, someone's left a comment on it, cool. I hope that's a thumbs up. You can see my GitHub action has actually detected all of the dashboards that import the component I changed and generated previews for all of them. So if we change a shared component, we get previews for all of them, which is a nice little feature. So I can click on any one of these, see what it's actually going to look like. We should see the legends show up on the right there, exactly as we expected. So now if I merge this, we will confirm merge. All right, there we go. If I click over to, yeah, I will delete the branch, don't worry. If I click over to my GitHub actions, I have this publish dashboards on merge action, which we can see is run for the previous merge that we did. This one is not especially smart. It actually just publishes all the dashboards every time I merge. That's sort of the easiest thing to do. But that means if we go over here, let's try refreshing this dashboard and see if that second change is rolled out. Yeah, the one we just merged has already been deployed. We can see our legends now show up on the right-hand side. And if we go back to our emoji service dashboard as well, see it got the change as well since we changed the template. Powers both of these. That's really all I wanted to show you today. That's pretty much it for this. I do have 3 things to mention before we wrap up. Oops. One thing is my email is on the slide here. Feel free to send me an email if you have questions about this or think it's interesting. Second thing is the code for all of this, as some of you have already discovered, is on GitHub, and you can take a look at it there. The GitHub actions there, I think, should be reusable, so if you want to use it to power your own dashboard automation, you should be able to give that a try. If not, I'm interested to hear what doesn't work. The third thing I wanted to mention is the DevRel team at DigitalOcean has sent me here with like 500 stickers to give out. So if you like stickers, please come and find me. I'll put some out on, is there a table there? All right, I'll put some out there, but yes, I'll come find me, chat about this or DigitalOcean or whatever, and I'll give you some nice stickers like these ones for the sticker lovers in your life. Thank you very much. I think we've got time for questions as well.
Yeah, we've got plenty of time for questions. Oh, Tom?
Good. Hello. How did you detect the dashboards that had changed when you changed the central library? Do you do that transitively or?
I don't do it transitively. So if you had templates that imported other templates, it wouldn't detect it. But I detect it using git log and grep. So it's not anything super fancy. Okay, cool. I will. Oh yeah, this is yes. Tom mentioned they have a tool called Tanker. Is it called? Yeah, that can generate transitive dependencies for JSON. Cool. I will take a look at that. Thank you.
How do people find making dashboards in code rather than using the UI, which obviously is the standard way that people learn initially?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a little hit or miss. For simple things and for things that we've done before, it's super easy, it's faster because you can copy and paste, you can use shared components. When you're doing something new, I've found sometimes I do have to go into the UI and like create something that I want and then figure out how to translate that into code. Grafana makes it pretty easy. It has, for all the basic things, it has functions and tools, but now and then you get something weird that you want to do, like sort a table a certain way, or actually the hardest thing I found is figuring out what the default colors are that Grafana uses, because the default colors that it puts on the graphs are not colors that you can like select in the UI. So for things like that, it's a lot of like experimentation. One really handy tool for doing that is if you build a dashboard in Grafana, you can go view panel JSON, and then you at least know like what you're trying to generate. But yeah, it's a bit of a mixed bag.
I guess with a similar question, actually, how do you find the people moving between want to do like little ad hoc tweaks to actually go through a GitHub PR review process and everything? And yeah, and how do you like allow people to move quickly and muck with things and then go back and forth?
So I mean, the number one way we convince people to use it is by marking all the dashboards read only. so there you actually and also sometimes I put like a warning banner at the top that says this dashboard is source control, please don't edit it. So there's a little bit of social pressure there. I think in general on our team, like we were obviously interested in doing this. So people are pretty inclined to edit them in source and like having the history. But it does limit sort of how fast you can move in a way. Luckily, most of the changes are pretty small and easy to review, so it's not usually too much overhead.
Adam, do you use variables and alerting in that, or can you do variables and alerting? We use that heavily. And
so for Grafana alerting?
Yeah, Grafana alerting. We use it because we not only have Prometheus, unfortunately, so we have to. And we heavily use variables and dashboards to distinguish environments, for example.
Okay, yeah. So we do sometimes use variables in dashboards, and those are easy to set up in Grafana. We don't use the alerting piece specifically, though. We manage our alert manager infrastructure separately, so that's elsewhere.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hello again. Do you? Oh, I forgot what I was going to ask. Sorry. Completely forgot what I was going to ask.
There's a 3 in the password that I wrote the wrong way around. I don't know why.
So part of what I've always found nice about having dashboards in source control is that we can like run Grafana in a stateless manner. But like snapshots kind of conflict with that. How do you deal with that? Do you just attach persistent storage to it, or?
Yeah, that's a good question. To be honest, the way we deal with it is my team doesn't worry about that. We let our observability team run Grafana for us. But yes, they back up with the database.
Okay. I've remembered what I was going to ask now. What could we do in Grafana to make this better?
That's a good question. I think. Yeah, export dashboard as Grafana would be ideal, but even making it easier to export a whole dashboard as JSON and sort of see what it looks like. I think there's probably some API tweaks that would be helpful, but yeah, the biggest one would be just making it easy to go from a pre-built dashboard to a JSON dashboard.
How do you import the dashboards generated per Grafonet into Grafana?
Yeah, so it's a sort of a two-step process. The first process is to compile it into JSON using JSON. Once you have the JSON blobs, then we just use the Grafana API. So it's just like an HTTP post for each dashboard. And if you look at the Git repository, there's the scripts are there that do that.
Any more questions?
Have you had experience with major upgrades, version upgrades of Grafana? Any issues with that one on your templates or?
We didn't. We have done a major upgrade, and I don't think we had any major issues. Grafana can set the schema version on dashboards, so then I think Grafana is pretty good at being backwards compatible and understanding if you're using a previous schema version. There are, for example, if you look in the repository, I have some dashboards there that are using newer schema versions, some that are using an older one, because there was somewhere I wanted to use rows and somewhere I wanted to do like the freeform thing. But yeah, setting the schema version is basically the way to deal with that.
Yeah, so for me it looks like it's a lot of troubles and a lot of steps to go through to put everything in the code for Grafana. And I didn't really hear the problem you are solving. Like, it's a lot of effort. So I can see there with automation and persuading people that they need to go to the code and learn this stuff and create the dashboards with the code. But what does it solve in the
Sure.
end?
Yeah. So there were two major things we wanted to solve. Number one was being able to have reusable components, like I mentioned. So we have a ton of gRPC services. It's hard to, well, you can like duplicate a dashboard and go and change it, but it's a lot of work to set up a dashboard for a new service. And when it's like exactly the same as for another service, it's nice to be able to just copy it over. That was one. The other thing was we did have trouble with people would go and change a dashboard, and we didn't know. And so you'd go and look at the dashboard and you'd be like, wait, this didn't used to look like this. What happened? What changed? And there was no good way in Grafana to see who changed it, when they changed it, why they changed it. I know there is the like enter a comment when you hit the save button thing, but people don't really use it consistently. So being able to do code review and being able to see real Git history for what changed, and to be clear, this is like tens or hundreds of dashboards. Like we have a lot of dashboards. So being able to see that history was really the biggest thing that we wanted, and be able to see it in one clear place.
Quick intermediary comment. I heard there were some people sitting on the floor, though I don't see it now. But there are more spaces over here in this area. I counted like 5 or 6. So if you need more places to sit, but yeah, maybe it's fine.
Hi, what was the reason you decided for Grafana and JSONnet? Have you looked at the other possibilities to generate dashboards with code like Grafana lib?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say the number one reason was it was the first thing I found. But also, it gives you a lot of flexibility with JSONnet. One of the really nice things in JSONnet, like I mentioned, is you can merge in arbitrary bits of JSON. So if there's something that Grafana doesn't support, you can always just like paste in the JSON for it, add it manually that way. So that's a nice feature. I haven't looked a lot at Grafana lib, although I did look at it a little bit, and that was one thing I found there. It was just a little bit easier to sort of do. It gave us a little bit more flexibility to do it in JSON. But yeah, there's definitely some alternatives.
So we already had some issues with enforcing defaults for example, like the granularity over time and everything. I guess this will be easy with JSONnet. Had you the same issues?
Yeah, that's one of the other things that we got out of this and that we were looking to get out of this was, for example, making it really easy to set all of our dashboards to be in UTC, so that they're not in local time zones. That was something that was very easy to do with this. It's easy to just set it to be UTC in each file, and you can enforce that through code review and shared components, etc. So yeah, that's definitely a helpful feature of the system.
Hi, so you are using the dashboard API. Have you looked at the provisioning dashboards, the feature in Grafana?
No, I haven't looked at it, so I'll have to do that.
Any more questions? Oh, okay. Okay, 2 more. But that's it.
My question is, and what kind of IDE or what are you using to write the code? Is there JSONnet support in, I don't know, in Atom, or I don't know? Sure. So personally, I use Emacs, and there is a JSONnet mode for Emacs. Yeah, I'm not sure if there are for other IDs. It's a good question. I'd be curious to hear if there's like a VS Code plugin. Okay, sounds like there is a VS Code integration as well. So there is some JSONnet support in editors.
So your grpc.libsonnet file, do you think that there would be advantages that we provide that directly within JSONnet, that kind of high-level helpers?
Sure, that's a really good question. I think it's like that grpc libsonnet file is going to vary depending on how you're generating your grpc metrics. Depending on your language, runtime, etc. So it definitely could be useful. You might need more parameters to be able to make it useful. The one that I showed, you really just give it the service name, and that's all you need. But yeah, if it could take a set of metric names and one for request rates, one for error rates, and one for durations or something, yeah, potentially a very useful thing.
Awesome.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Thank you so much.